Hello. All right. I got it unmuted. Ooh. Sorry, it's been a while. Excuse me. I need some water to clear my throat. But yeah, sorry, it's been a while. But here we go on chapter 10. Asuras. 2 mile west, Highway 78 merged into 4 lanes that led into town. Such as it was, basically a couple of strip malls between Steve and more empty roads. The speed limit sign said 45. He glanced down and he saw he was doing 80. The rattle-trap taxi shaking like the magic fingers of at a cheap motel. He rode to a stop at the first red light, a little jerky. There's blood on the windshield, he thought. How did it get there? He squirted wiper fluid on it, hoping it would clean off some of the dog's blood. It didn't, just smeared it around a little. He felt dazed. In the back, Naga lifted her head and looked around, blinking. Feeling better? He thought for a second suppository might be doing its thing. Don't try to move. We're out. No more dogs. She twitched her tail a little, then bent around to her hindquarters and sniffed the bandages. Well, yeah, Steve sighed. There's that. Where the hell do you take a wounded lion? The zoo? The black Toyota truck inched to a stop behind him. Steve glanced over at it and found himself at eye level with a mud flaps. It was jacked up so high that you almost need a ladder to get in and out. Do you call that a monster truck? What's the dividing line? Steve wondered. How big does it have to get before it's a monster? Is it just X number of inches higher than factory? Or do the tires have to... The truck honked. Steve looked up. 3 or 4 feet up. Some guy in the passenger seat was gesturing to Steve to roll down his windows. Steve did. Yes? The passenger was a kid, about 18 or 20. His baseball cap was on backwards. Yo, man, he said. You got like half a dog hanging off the back of your bumper. Do I? Yeah. Did you drive over it on purpose? Like... No. The Buddha teaches respect for all life. Then, under his breath, I guess I did shoot a couple though. There's blood all over your fucking door, man. You get in a accident or something? Nope. Dog fight. Something occurred to him. Hey, is there a vet around here? The kid looked at him like he was crazy. Man, ain't no vet gonna help that dog. He's cut in half, yo. It's not for him, Steve said. It's for her. What? Steve jerked the thumb to the back seat. The kid leaned out up and down, peeking. Whoa! Then to the driver. Hey, Frank! This guy got a fucking lion in his cab. The driver leaned forward. Say what? Leaned back. I can't. Maybe you should work harder and keep... you should work harder on keeping a low profile, fugitive boy. Holy shit, the driver said. I know you. You're that guy from Fox News. Nope, Steve said. Not me. I get that a lot, though. This goddamn light's taking forever. He considered running it just to get away from the kids in the truck. Nah, bad idea. Instead, he rolled up the windows. This actually helped. It was crusty with dog's slobber and pretended to study the strip mall signs a quarter mile up. He squinted. There was a buy low, a Walmart, some restaurant called Monsieur Taco. What the fuck? And the Black Path Animal Hospital. Steve considered. He figured it was about 50-50. The guy in the truck would call 911. He should get off the road fast. On the other hand, there's Naga. She was nibbling at her bandages. They were saturated, dripping. The suppositories had helped, but it wouldn't last. The light turned green. Fuck it, he said. The true Buddhist will not be a more what? Yeah, the true Buddhist would not be a moral and intellectual coward. He waited for the guys in the truck to roll away, then pulled in behind them. Half a block later, he turned left into the strip mall badly. The cab was a Chrysler Voyager minivan, a four-cylinder. It had a lot less power than a plumbing truck. Steve misjudged the gap to an oncoming BMW, obliging its driver to screech to a halt. She and Steve exchanged one finger salute. Naga lifted her head up again and roared. That startled him enough that he hopped the curb, clipped a hedge, and nearly T-boned a truck full of landscapers pulling out of McDonald's drive-thru. Ah! Naga roared again. Shut up! I'm driving! In the rearview mirror, Naga gave him a reproachable look. Steve slowed to a walking speed and crossed the rest of the parking lot carefully, looking both ways at junctions. Finally, coasting to a stop in front of the vet. A sign that read, "Great Kitty, a flea dip." What? Oh. Let me try that sentence again. A sign out front read, "Get Kitty a flea dip." Wait here, Steve said to Naga. I'll be right back. He pulled the pistol in the back waistband of his sweatpants and pulled his concert t-shirt down over it. Walking around to the back of the taxi, he saw that there was indeed half of a dog dangling from the tailpipe. It was too bloody to be sure, but he thought it might have been the chocolate lab that had latched onto its windows. Maybe it got wedged under the mufflers somehow. He vaguely remembered bumps in the road as he pulled out of Garrison Oaks, thinking that the veterinarian might not approve. He spent a second trying to get the corpse a little more out of sight, but it was both deeply, deeply disgusting and wedged solidly in place. When Gal rose in his throat, he gave up, wiped his hands on the back of his sweats, and limped to the office. The waiting room had a tile floor and smelled like cat food. A fussy-looking man in a bow tie held a Yorkshire Terrier on a short leash. Opposite him, a middle-aged hippie sat with a cat carrier on her lap. Steve leaned against the reception desk, his hand crusty with dried blood. I need to see one of the doctors. Panting, it's urgent. The Yorkie, small and immaculate, barked at him. You'll need to fill this out, said the receptionist said, eyeing him cautiously. And I'm afraid those two people are both ahead of you. Do you have an appointment? He laughed, not quite hysterical. It's kind of an emergency. Have you got a stretcher? A big stretcher? Emergency? Oh yeah. He rocked his head up and down. Big time. It's okay, said the woman with the cat hair. I'm in no hurry. The guy with the Yorkie gave her a dour look. Give me a sec, the receptionist said. She picked up her phone. Hey, Jer? We got a guy here with an emergency. Can you grab Allie and bring the stretcher? Thanks. No, Steve said sincerely. Thank you, really. He almost added, and I'm sorry. Then thought better of it. He was sorry, though. He thought that the rest of the afternoon was liable to suck for everyone in this room. A moment later, two youngish women in green scrubs trotted out, one of them carrying a good-sized stretcher. Where is he? It's your dog, right? She's in the car, Steve said. This way. They followed him out into the parking lot. He saw that the guy in the jacked up black truck had circled back. They idled in the parking lot in front of a Walmart, watched the rumble of the monster truck faint but still audible. Steve groaned. What's wrong? The taller vet tech asked. Nothing. My foot is sore. His foot actually did hurt. She's over here. He opened the sliding door to the minivan and stepped back behind the woman. Naga raised her head, groggy but interested. Holy cow, the shorter one said. Is that a lion? We get that a lot. She's actually a labradoodle. We just shaved her like a lion. Pretty funny, huh? The two of them peered at Naga. Steve held his breath. The tall tech said, We, she pointed to the shorter tech, are veterinarian students. You understand that, right? Yeah, said the shorter one, nodding. Bullshit. They both turned around to look at him. What do you think we are, idiot? Oh. Now Steve was holding the empty pistol, not pointing it at anyone. Here's what we're gonna do. You hold the stretcher, he said. I'll lift her out. She's not going to hurt anyone. Neither am I. She's lost a lot of blood. We're going to take her in there to the doctor. Then you two can go. The techs absorbed this. I mean it, Steve said. Everything will be fine. I just need some help is all. Will you guys help me? Please? Come on. They considered. No fucking way, said the shorter one. She looked at her partner for confirmation. The tall tech was studying Naga. You drove here with a lion in the back of your cab? Pretty much, yeah. How do you know she's not going to bite? I do. Look, she's in a bad way. I hate doing this to you, but... The tall tech was studying him now. Steve held his breath. After a moment, she said, How about if we carry the lion and you hold her head? That works, Steve said. I'm going to get in the taxi now. Okay, mister, said the shorter tech, much too sincerely. You try to run, and I'll kneecap you, Steve said, waggling the empty pistol. I mean it. I'm a marksman. I got a silver medal in the 92 Olympics. The shot won't kill you, but it'll hurt for the rest of your life. Thwarted, she flashed a fake smile. Wouldn't dream of it. He stepped into the cab. I'm going to put the gun away now. He tucked it away. There. You won't even see it again unless you try to run. Good to know, said the tall tech. Okay, get the stretcher ready. The two tech looked at the lion, then at each other. Okay. The tall one said, Yeah. She probed Steve with her eyes. You hold her head, right? I hold her head. She nodded she nodded at the other tech. They lifted the stretcher to a horizontal position. Steve smiled at them. Thanks, he said. Really? He stepped around them into the cab. Hey, Naga, he said. Hey, big girl. Almost there, sweetie. He patted her fur, made a show of checking her bandages. The tech watched this, wide-eyed. Dude, I don't think you should... Shh. As gently as he was able, he slid his arm under Naga. Naga rubbed a little, but did not resist. He muscled her off the seat. She was very heavy. What he managed was not so much to carry as one controlled fall onto the floor of the cab and another onto the stretcher. I must have been jacked up out of my mind to get her out of the house. On the stretcher, Naga raised her head and squinted at the two tech. They blinked back at her, smiling and clearly terrified. Get her head, the tall tech said. She spoke with exaggerated gentleness. Okay. Step back a little, Steve said. I can't. They backed away from the cab a foot or so. He hopped out, grunting at a lightning strike of pain from his back ankle. He slid one arm under Naga, raised her head, and laid the other hand over her cheek. Panted her muzzle. I can't possibly hold her if if she decided she wanted to do something, but it might give them a second to get away. Together, they waddled across the parking lot and into the waiting room. We need a room right now, the tall tech said. The receptionist gasped, jerked out of her chair, dropped her pen. Room 2. Come through. Coming through. Dude, that's a lion, the hippie with the cap carrier said conversationally. Steve ignored her. The guy with the bow tie stood up and bolted out the front door. A moment later, his Yorkie followed. What's going on? Came a woman's voice from the back of the office. Oh, she said. Oh my. Are you the doctor? She opened her mouth, shut it again. Steve didn't really blame her. It's okay, he said. Naga's not going to hurt anybody. She considered this. Yeah, okay. I'm Dr. Alice. Is she... What's wrong with her? Dogs, Steve said. We got in a fight with some dogs. They tore up her leg pretty bad. I think they nicked an artery. She had 2 transfusions, but I can't get the bleeding stopped. Is she restrained? No, Steve said. But she won't hurt you. You can't know that. I'm not doing anything until the animal is restrained. Okay, fine. Get whatever. I'll put it on her. He was thinking of a muzzle or maybe some sort of strap. He's got a gun, the short tech said. I'll be leaving now, the woman with the cat carrier said. Sorry, Steve said. I can't let you do that. And I do have a gun. I'm not here to hurt anyone, I swear, but I need help. In his mind's eye, he saw Jack, trapped forever in darkness. His cheek stung with Celia's slap. He looked at the doctors, pleading. Dr. Elise, pursed her lip, thinking it's okay. Dr. Elise pursed her lip, thinking it's over. Okay, she said finally. 2 conditions. First, you let everyone here go. Second, you jab the injured lion with the syringe. Such was Steve's gratitude that he was rendered mute. He said nothing. He nodded. The doctor made a shooing motion. The woman with the cat carrier ducked out. After a moment, the receptionist followed. She turned to the techs. You guys too. I'll stay, the tall one said. Jerry, you don't have to. I'll stay. Wouldn't miss this for the world. Everyone looked at the other tech. You guys have fun, she said. Steve took her end of the stretcher. She bolted. Whew, okay. The doctor turned her attention to her patients. Let's get her into room 2. She's not fully grown. Any idea how old? Steve shook his head. Wait. I lifted her, but it was all I could do. 200, maybe? I say 255 easy, she paused. You lifted her? Alone? She helped a little. Still having the stretcher, he dipped his shoulder, pantomiming. Fireman's carry. Oh. Okay. So, what are you, a trainer or... She shook her head. Never mind. Later. Inside the exam room, they laid the stretcher on the table. Jerry, go to the Merc. Merc? What? Yeah, Merc. MERCK. Go to the Merc and see what kind of dosage we need for a 250-pound lion. Ketamine and Xanax? No. What? Xyloxine. Xyloxine. Man, I don't think I ever read this or used Xylazine. Xylazine. Xylazine? The doctor wrinkled her face. Unless you know better, this is my first line. That's what we used last summer. I'm on it. We'll also need ET tube. Big as we got. Naga's hind paw dangled off the end of the table. She lifted her head, looked around the room, rumbled. The doctor jumped back a little bit. It's okay, Steve said. He patted Naga's neck. Nothing to be scared of. The tech, Jerry, returned a couple minutes later, bearing a big syringe and a bag full of plastic tubes. She handed it to the doctor. Doctor Elise checked the levels. That's it? We were a little short of ketamine. The doctor raised her eyebrows. Just a little. Okay. It will have to do. She looked at the line, frowned, then handed Steve the syringe. You ever given an injection before? No. Nothing to it. This goes in the muscle. Jab it in quick. Then eject slowly. See if you can find a spot in the back leg, away from the wound. She handed Steve the syringe, then backed up near the door. Jerry, behind me. Steve looked at Naga's hindquarters, found a spot with a good bit of muscle. He practiced jabbing. Like this? The doctor nodded. It's like jabbing an orange, Jerry offered from the hall. Okay. Steve blew out a breath. Focused. Here we go. He stuck Naga in her hip. She lifted her head, bared her teeth. She roared. Steve jumped back. The needle dangled from Naga's hip. He held up a finger as if disciplining an unruly child. Bad kitty. You'll be good. Slowly, her snarl faded. Steve took a step forward, then another. This is going to make you feel better. He laid his hand on the syringe. Naga jerked up at its touch. With a wild yawl that made Steve's bowels feel loose, she swatted his chest with her right forepaw. Her claws dug deep trenches into the meat of him. Steve jumped back, yelling. Naga sprang from the table, landing with her paw on his shoulder. Bit him in the left shoulder. Somebody in the hall screamed. Steve, weirdly unafraid, worked his hands up to chest level and pushed as hard as he could, ripping Naga from his chest along with a good bit of his skin. From his back and shoulder, Naga bounced off the wall. Following an instinct he didn't quite understand, Steve slapped the lion in the face. She didn't bite or claw him, possibly too surprised to do so, but she roared back. She roared again, and Steve roared back. Go on. You want to end up dead? You're still bleeding, asshole. Bite me all you want, and you can bleed out in the parking lot. See if anyone lunge your huge ass to the zoo. Go on, see. Drops of his blood fell to the floor and mingled with her. They glared at each other. Go on. After a while, Naga sank back against the wall. A second or two later, she stopped snarling. Yeah, Steve said. I thought so. He snatched the syringe off the floor. From behind him, the vet's voice. I don't think you should. Yeah. He walked up to Naga. She snarled again, long white teeth against pink, healthy gums. I bet her capillary response is pretty good now. Ignoring the snarl, he pulled her unwounded right hip away from the wall and jabbed the needle in it. She roared again, a deep bass sound that rattled the windows. Shut the fuck up! Slowly, Dr. Alice said. Her voice was muffled. Steve glanced back. The door was slowly shut. The door was mostly shut. She peeked in, only the top of her head showing. He pushed the plunger in, one excruciating millimeter at a time. In a few seconds, it was empty. Steve pulled the syringe out, tossed it aside. Naga looked at him, confused. There, Steve said, sarcastic. Feel better now? Naga looked at him for a moment, then slumped. A moment later, she laid her head down on the floor. Steve slumped too, back against the wall. His shoulder blades felt wet. He stood up straight again, turned and looked. Where he had leaned, there was a big blood stain on the wall. He turned to the vet. You guys got any Band-Aid? Jerry, get me some gauze and some tape. Naga laid on the floor, semi-conscious. I think you can start now, Steve said. Not yet. Give it about 10 minutes. Oh, okay. Am I bleeding bad? Steve walked over. He walked over to her and presented his back. Well, it is Steve. Anyways, she examined it. It's not good, but I think it's superficial. Probably leave some scars though. You're going to need stitches. Shouldn't be a problem, I imagine. Someone will be along shortly to arrest me. I don't doubt that. That was about the dumbest thing I've ever seen, she paused. Not I'm brave, but very, very dumb. Is that your line? Not really. Kind of. We just met a couple of hours ago. She raised her eyebrows. Steve shrugged. It's been an intense couple of hours. The vet looked at Naga. She's bleeding pretty bad. She probably wouldn't have made it much longer. Steve looked at her. I've seen worse though. That bandage will hold until she's anesthetized. I'm pretty sure I can stitch her up in time. She looked at him, leveling. If you're trying to save her life, you probably did. Steve turned this notion over in his mind, examining it. He smiled. Yeah? Yeah. It was really dumb though. Steve sighed, wishing for a cigarette. The Buddha teaches respect for all life. Oh? She considered this. Are you Buddhist? No. I'm an asshole. But I keep trying. Part 2. 10 minutes later, Naga was back on the table. They put the stretcher on the floor. Steve had muscled her onto it while she was still semi-conscious. As he did this, Naga stretched her tongue out and licked blood off the back of his hand. It's okay, Steve said. Stroke her cheeks. No big. When Naga's eyes were shut, he, Jerry, and Dr. Alice lifted her up onto the examination table. While they were waiting for the anesthetic to fully kick in, Steve borrowed some bandages and started taping himself up. Halfway through what was shaping up to be a really bad job, Dr. Alice said, "Point that gun at me." Beg pardon? Point that gun at me. Okay. Steve pulled the HK out of his waistband and lifted it in her general direction. What's that you say? Dr. Elise said. If I don't bandage you up, you're going to shoot me? Well, I guess I have no choice then. Steve blinked, smiled at her. Thanks. Jerry, turn your back. I'm about to set a bad example. Jerry Jerry obliged. As Dr. Elise cleansed out the scratches of Steve's back with a bottle of saline, then injected him with something. A minute or so later, his back was numb. Get me a rap ID, would you? Jerry, gloved, went outside for a second and returned with a clear plastic tool above the size of a paperback book and two pinchable handles. What's that? Staple gun. What? Kaplop! Ah, fuck. Sorry. Hold still. Kaplop. Ow! I'm not a 2x4. Don't be such a baby. I don't have time to suture. Steve managed to keep quiet for the next couple, but his face contorted with pain. He grunted on the 6th, 7th, and 8th kaplops. There we go. Dr. Alas. Have I been reading her name wrong? Alsace. I'll keep Alas. Alice said, all done. Hold the gun on Jerry and tell her to bandage you up. Steve pointed the gun at her. Eek! Don't shoot! Hang on. I'll need to get more tape. She returned a second later, eyes wide. Mister? My name's Steve. Steve? There's a guy out there. He said he wants to talk to you. Steve's stomach nodded. Cops? I'm not sure. He has a gun. Steve thought about this for a second. He pursed his lip, nodded. Tell him it's okay. Tell him to come in. I won't shoot anything. A second later, Irwin walked in. Glad to hear it, he said. He glanced at Naga. Nice lion. Thanks. When I heard the call come in, I had a feeling this might be you. You're really extra fucking special under arrest. You know that, right? Irwin pulled a set of those plastic cuffs that looks like cable ties out of his back pocket. Steve didn't move. He was thinking about the front door, the tree lines behind the strip mall, the taxi. No, Irwin said, seeing him tense. You shouldn't do that. No? No. He pointed back at the general directions of the waiting room. There's a guy on the roof, back behind the dry cleaning place. I used to work with him. He's a good shot. You try anything, he's going to put a bullet through your center of mass. It'll leave a hole on your back. It'll leave a hole in your back about a foot across. Half your guts will blow out with it. You'll be dead before you even know you were hit. Steve walked out into the lobby and peeping out the window. Oh, he said. Oh, wow. There was indeed a guy on the roof on top of the cleaners with a rifle. There were also around 10 squad cars in the parking lot, blue light flashing 100 yards away. People streamed out of Walmart, headed down, running. He scanned the roofline and saw another sniper on top of the Monsieur Taco. Fuck, he said. After all that? Yeah, Irwin said. It's a bitch. He jiggled the plastic cuffs in the air. You gonna let me do this, or do we gotta shoot you? Steve looked at the front door, tested his weight on his bandages, or his bandaged ankle. Maybe I could duck out the back end. If you decide to run, can you give me a second first? I want to get them nice lady out of the line of fire before the deputies start shooting. They're all excited like. I don't think they'll be real careful when they see you come running out with a gun. Be a shame if the rest of us got killed along with you. Steve put his palms up to his temple. He walked around the waiting room and saying, shit, 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 shit. He kicked the big bag of dog food. Then, with a sigh, okay, you're right. You're right. No way out. I still got a I still got a problem though. Yeah? What's that? I knew how this was gonna I knew how this was probably gonna end up, but I came here anyways. Now it occurred to me that if I just drop the gun, don't drop it, Erwin said. Might go off. Set it down gently. Yeah, yeah, sure. If I just drop it, people on TV are always dropping guns. I saw a guy get shot that way once. Okay, understood. I'll just set it down. If, if what? If you, he looked significant at Irwin, promise me you won't let them just come in here and kill her. Promise me you'll figure out, I don't know, something. A zoo, a circus. He searched Irwin's face. Please, if you do that, I'll help you as much as I can. Help me? How? I don't know. A whole I don't know a whole lot. But I do know where they are. Carolyn and the rest. Irwin considered this. Full cooperation, no holding back? Steve nodded. Can you stretch the interior of this place? Can you sketch? What? What? Can you sketch the interior of this place? Sure. Irwin considered for a sec. I can't take that line back to my apartment, you understand? I understand. I just I'm just asking you to tell me that you'll do your best. Yeah, Erwin said. Okay, you got my word. Steve nodded. He held out his wrist to Erwin. Put down the gun first. Steve set it on the reception desk gently. Hands behind your back. He did that too. Blue lights flashed through the window. He tilted his head back, shut his eyes. The sound of cuffs made as they closed were just like zipping up a plastic cable tie. Smart, Erwin said. They really would have killed you. I know. Erwin leaned back and looked into room 2. That there's a big ass line. Steve smiled a little. You think she's big? You should have seen her dad. Full grown male, maybe 400 pounds. Oh? Erwin looked mildly alarmed. He around? Steve shook his head. No. Didn't make it out. He raised his voice. Hey! How's she doing, doctor? They had started an IV and were giving Naga some sort of clear fluid. The bandage was off. The bandages were off, and Dr. Elise was hunched over Naga's leg. She didn't answer. Jerry said, shh. She walked over to the door and closed it, but slowly giving the thumbs up sign with her free hand. Steve gave her a little nod. She nodded back, then shut the door. She's yours? Erwin said. Val didn't say anything about you having a pet lion. Not really. We just met. We've kind of been looking after each other. Just ran into her on the street? Actually, yeah. Erwin looked at him, waiting for a proper answer. After a minute or so, he gave up. Any chance I can get you to give a little more detail on that? Sure. Sorry. Other things on my mind. I was out for a jog. A whole bunch of mean dogs, like dozens of them, tried to eat me. I shot some, but they had me down on the ground. I was a goner. Naga and her dad kind of came in out of nowhere and pulled the dogs off me, saved my life. Yeah? No shit? No shit. Orwin considered. That's unusual. Yeah, I thought so too, Steve shrugged. Don't argue with Santa Claus, I guess. You think them lines have maybe got something to do with this Carolyn chick of yours? Steve rolled his eyes. I don't know. Let me think about that for a sec. Sorry, dumb question. Do they? Hang on. Irwin pulled his hand to his ears. I love to keep chatting with you, but them cops are getting antsy outside. He lifted his wrist and spoke into the sleeve. Yeah, suspect in custody and shit. 2 seconds later, the front door burst open. Half a dozen sheriff deputies flowed in, guns drawn. Easy, fellas, Irwin said. Everything's fine. Federal custody, remember? I remember, said a guy with a lot of stripes on his sleeve. He spoke through his gritted teeth. What about the line? It's asleep, Irwin said. Having an operation. That's why he came here. Don't hurt her, okay? Steve said. What? The cop looked at him like he was a bug on the road. Steve felt his inner peace slipped a notch. Pretty please. Animal control is on the way. Can't keep a lion as a pet in this town, son, the cop said. City ordinance. A couple of other cops snickered. Steve felt his rage boiling. Irwin? Yeah? Remember what I said? I remember. Good. If you want, I can take you to where the phone clipped to his waistband started ringing. Who's that? Steve thought frantically. It's her, probably. Carolyn. She gave me the phone. She's called a couple of times already. Want me to talk to her? Irwin considered this. Nah, we'll be seeing her in a minute anyways. You already know where she is? Oh yeah. Nice little neighborhood about 2 miles from here. We had the place surrounded since around lunchtime. We're waiting until we get all the neighborhood evacuated, then we're going in. You don't sound too enthusiastic. Owen gave him a long look. Fact is, I'm not. What's the matter? I'm just not sure what. Owen cut himself. That's not true. I am sure something bad is going on. I just don't know what. I feel the way a rat must feel sniffing the peanut butter on a trap. He looked at Steve. Is your buddy in that house? Steve looked at him blankly. The guy with the knife thing, the one who broke you out of jail, is he there? Oh, his name is David. Yeah, he's there. Last time I saw him, anyways. Irwin frowned. I was afraid of that. He's not my buddy though, Steve said. You're wrong about that. I've got no idea who those people. Oh, you're wrong about that. I got no idea who those people are or what they want from me. And that guy's crazy. He scares the crap out of me. He scares the rest of them. Wait, he scares the rest of them too, I think. The rest of who? Steve opened his mouth to speak, shut it. What about Naga? The lion? I'll try the zoo. Irwin sounded a million miles away. Steve gave him a skeptical look. Irwin glanced up. You got my word. I'll figure something out. Steve continued to look skeptical. With a sigh, Irwin turned to the guy with all the stripes on his sleeve. Frank, listen up. The line is evidence in a federal investigation. Take good care of it. Her, Steve said. The hell you say? Frank said. No, Irwin said. He turned to face the man. He spoke quietly. He was polite. But in the moment, Steve understood for the first time how extraordinary, dangerous Irwin truly was. I do say you called the fucking zoo And you call animal control, you call whoever you need to call. But if anything happens to that animal, you and me are going to have a problem. The cop was an inch or two taller than Irwin. When the two of them locked eyes, he was looking down. He held Irwin's gaze, but only for a moment. Then he withered visibly. His chest unpuffed. He averted his eyes. His men watched this. All right, he said. Yeah, okay. Irwin turned back to Steve. That good enough? Good enough, Steve said. His mouth had gone dry. He swallowed hard. Thank you. Okay, I don't know a whole lot. The first time I ever saw him was the same time you did at the jail. I saw what you did in the hall. I saw what he did in the hall. Ropey guts dangling from the fluorescent and started squirming. He got pissed off and knocked me out, I think. I woke up in the house a couple miles from here. Like you said, there was a bunch of them there. Carolyn said they were her brothers and sisters, but they didn't look like family to me. There were two black guys that looked like twins and a creepy lady who smelled like dead ass. I think she was like Polynesian or something, except she was so pale her skin was almost blue. But I don't know. Maybe they're adopted. They all spoke the same language, anyways. What language? Could you tell? Steve shook his head. I never heard anything like it before. Maybe a little bit like Vietnamese, except not. Are they like him? Carolyn and the rest? Dangerous? I'll tell you for free. If my guys go in there and get hurt because you lied to us. Oh, let me try that sentence again. I'll tell you for free. If my guys go in there and get hurt because you lied to us, I'll go hard on you. Steve considered the question, and not just because Irwin had threatened him. I don't know, he said finally. I don't think so. They all seem really afraid of him. Good, Irwin said. But I think they all, I think, but I think they might be dangerous in other ways, Steve said. Everything I told you about Carolyn was true. Everything. She's not like that David guy, but I think she's got something. Got something? I don't know. She just doesn't seem, I don't know, helpless. Some of the others, sure. A couple of them, I'm pretty sure I could take, but not that David guy and not her. There's something about her. Steve shook his head. I don't know. I'll be careful, it's all. Irwin was studying him. How many of them were there? The family. I'm not sure. I didn't count. About a dozen, I think, give or take. Plus, the old lady who owns the house, she's normal. Not one of them. Irwin clicked his tongue, deep in thought. Don't you believe me? Yeah, Irwin said. I think I do. A couple of hours ago, we had an RC-135 do a flyover. Infrared showed 13 people inside. You didn't know that. If you were going to lie about something, that would have been a good place to start. Infrared? But that raised another question. Hey, Steve said. How'd you find me anyways? You brought a lion into the vet, son. Even without the gun. A thing like that's bound to cause talk. So, you were just here on vacation or something? Oh, I gotcha. No, I'm in town as sort of a expert advisor with the strike team. I'm the only one we know who's seen him alive, besides you, of course. Strike team? Oh, yeah. Lots of heavy hitters in town today. Delta, a couple of snipers from SEAL 6, even some Marine Recon. Your Miss Saposky, she's about to have company. How'd you find her? Irwin frowned. Crazy bitch called up the White House. Can you believe that? Part 3. Irwin walked Steve out of the vet's office and left him handcuffed in the back seat of the squad car for half an hour or so. At Steve's request, Irwin cut off the plastic cuffs behind his back and recuffed them in front. What was a lot more comfortable. That was a lot more comfortable. Steve found that half an hour or so weirdly relaxing. It was a nice autumn day. The car window was cracked enough to let the breeze in. He wasn't in immediate mortal danger. There wasn't any big decision to make. Also, I don't have to worry about getting caught anymore. That's that too. He didn't quite sleep, but he might have dozed a little. Irwin did paperwork and argued with the cops. After a little while, a truck stenciled with the word Eastern Exotic Cat Shelter pulled up. Steve smiled at that. He was hoping to see Naga again, but before they brought her out, Irwin opened the door and the squad car. Wakey wakey, he jerked a thumb over his shoulder. Out. Steve blinked. Maybe he had slept a little. Where to? My car. This isn't your car? Do I look like a cop? Actually, Irwin gave him a look. No, Steve said. Of course not. Irwin nodded. He took Steve by the shoulder and walked him over to the nondescript Ford sedan parked 30 yards away. This is a State Department car. I signed for it. Irwin peered at him. You gonna give me any shit? I'm not planning on it. Okay. You could ride in front if you want. I'm gonna leave the cuffs on though. Sure, I understand. Hey, am I still bleeding? A little. Not much actually. Irwin rooted around in the back seat, grabbed a newspaper. He unfolded the paper and laid the sports section across the passenger side of the front seat. Okay, sit on that. Steve looked stung. Son, your shirt's a mess, and you need a fucking shower. Any stains get on that upholstery, I'm gonna clean them. I gotta clean them, no offense. Nah, said Steve. It's okay. By now, it was getting to be late afternoon, 4:13 p.m. According to the dash clock in Irwin's car, they turned out of the parking lot and headed back down Highway 78. Steve gave Monsieur Taco a longing look as they drove away. He was getting hungry. Where are we going? DC. Seriously? Yep. A lot of people want to talk to you. About what? Irwin looked at him like he was an idiot, which Steve thought, I suppose I am. Sorry. I guess what I meant was, what do they expect me to be able to tell them? I'm a, I'm as confused as anybody. More so, probably. Hmm. What? Just I sort of believe you, I guess. Yeah? Steve felt absurdly grateful to hear that. I appreciate that. I really do. Unexpectedly, Irwin turned off the main road and rolled to a stop in the parking lot of a lumber yard on top of a hill. There were a couple of cars in the parking lot, but mostly the place was empty. What are you doing? Well, I said I'm taking you to DC. This is just a little detour. Detour? Yeah, the Delta guys didn't want me riding along with them, even as an observer. I'm here to ID the David fella. They had cameras at the jail when he broke me out. I mean, I saw them. Yeah, funny thing about that, they didn't work. They were fine when I was talking to you, but when that big asshole showed up, them cameras just kind of magically broke. He gave Steve a look. That's kind of weird, isn't it? I think I say so, yeah. Okay, so that's why you're in town. But why are we in this parking lot? Well, Irwin said, nobody said I couldn't watch. He pointed. They were on the edge of the steep bluff, maybe about 100 feet high or almost vertical. Below them, about half a mile away, two military vehicles were pulling up outside the small subdivision. Are those tanks? Nah, a tank got bigger guns. That there's a Bradley fighting vehicle. It's for carrying soldiers mostly. What are they doing? It's called going in hard, Owen said. He pulled a big green knapsack out of the back seat and rummaged around it, coming up with a pair of field binoculars. I got a night scope too. You can borrow it if you want to watch. Don't need the starlight, but it'll magnify about 6x. Sure. Irwin handed him a biggish rifle scope with ATN stamped on the side. Steve held it up. It magnified pretty well. Too well, actually. It took him a couple of minutes to scan to identify the house. What are those guys? Shh. Steve shushed. He heard a thumping noise and looked up from the scope. Two black helicopters were flying from the west, low and fast. He could see them clearing, but the rotors were muffled somehow. They were quite silent, but they didn't have the thunder you'd expect either. A moment later, the Bradley started up with a puff of blue smoke. The helicopter hovered just over Mrs. McGillicuddy's house. Black rope dropped out of each one. Men slid down the rope, a dozen in all. Their synchronization weren't quite perfect, but it was close. They touched ground within seconds of another. As Steve watched, they lined up on either side of the French doors that opened up into Mrs. McGillicuddy's back patio. Black boots pounding silently over the red brick in 6 times magnification. The helicopters dropped back. The men made hand gestures to one another. 2 of them beat the door with a metal ram. 3 men tossed something in. There was a flash and a bang. The men streamed into the house. Watching them, Steve thought of the dogs flowing out of the woods. Muzzle flashes began. First one, then a long pause, then 2 more. Then a fusillade? A fusillade? Fusillade. The explosive brightness was startling in the long, dreamy, shadows of something suburban afternoon. The sounds of the shots arrived a moment later, carried on still autumn air. One of Mrs. McGillicuddy's windows shattered. Faintly, from a great distance, Steve heard the sound of a woman screaming. An automatic weapon delivered a short burst of fire. Then, much longer one. There was another scream, a man's voice. Steve heard something that sounded a little like Dresden's roar. It made the hair on the back of his neck stood up. What the hell was that? Irwin asked. Steve shook his head. David, maybe? There was more gunfire, more flashes. Another woman screamed. More windows broke. Glass rained down on Mrs. McGillicuddy's nearly trimmed lawn, flashing in the sun. Holes appeared in the wall, sending splinterings of aluminum siding flying, sending splinters of aluminum siding flying. That's weird descriptor. They're all shooting now. Steve heard screams. Men's and women's voice mingled, rising. It must be hell in there. Irwin said. One of the black-clad commandos drove out a small window in the back of the house. His face was covered in blood. His helmet was gone. He didn't have his gun anymore. Probably he hoped to tuck and roll before he hit the ground, but he only made it about halfway out the window before something caught him. His torso crushed against the side of the house. Screaming, arms flailing, he was yanked back inside. Steve saw a flash of gold metal, a spray of arterial scarlet. All these happened in less than a second. Now the screams overlap, building, rising to a crescendo. Steve nodded at Irwin's walkie-talkie sitting on the console. Can you hear what they're saying? Nope, Irwin said. They use encryption. I couldn't get it even if I knew what the frequency they were on. He paused. They don't look really good, though. One of Carolyn's people, a woman in gray-green robe, fell through the French door onto the back patio. She laid where she landed, not moving. Her chest was covered in blood. Hey, Steve said. I recognize that one. I think her name is Jennifer. The helicopters, still trailing their long rope, moved a little bit closer. A moment later, they backed off again. The two Bradleys in front of the neighborhood started rolling. One in front of the house. They each disgorged a small horde of men in green carrying automatic weapons. The army guys moved towards the front door. Only a couple made it. Bleh. Automatic weapons fire from the house cut the rest down in the front yard. Heads shot mostly. Mercifully blurry at the distance, the soldiers fell in the grass, boneless. All but one laid still. But that one, a black guy, writhed and screamed. His legs didn't seem to be working. Holy fucking shit, Steve said. He looked over. Irwin's face was twisted with fury. His gray hair stood out wildly against the flashed red face. I told him, Irwin said. I told him this was different. I fucking told him. 3 of the men from the Bradleys made it as far as the house. As the men from the helicopters had done, they stood on either side of the house and made hand gestures to one another. Steve thought, they're going to do it. They're really going to go in there. On purpose. Damn. But they didn't. Something punched through the wall. Again, Steve caught a flash of bright yellow, brass, and blood in the afternoon sunlight as the soldier's throat exploded. A moment later, the other 2 dropped as well. One after another, in rapid succession. He's stabbing them through the wall. It reminded him of the sewing machine needle. Steve heard a whirling sound. The barrel of Bradley's main gun began to turn on the house. They're going to blow up the house, he thought. They're going to blow it up, even with their own men inside. But they didn't. The rear door of both Bradleys were still open. So when David streaked out the front door, there was nothing to stop him. My God, Steve thought. He's so fast. David disappeared inside the vehicle. A second later, the hatch on the gun turret flipped up and a single hand, bloody, rose up. Fingers clawed at the air. Helpless. Then the hand slipped back inside. The driver of the second Bradley began closing his back door. It was the right idea, but he wasn't quite quick enough. David dove over the back gate, smooth and graceful. A minute or so later, the back hatch opened again. Now, the Bradley was red inside. David stood alone in the back, carrying his spear. And, is that somebody's head? Something tucked under his arm. For a moment, he seemed to lock eyes with Steve, half a mile away. The hair on the back of Steve's neck, all prickly. David grinned, then turned and darted back inside the house. The helicopters moved in close again, their guns starting up and began to whirl, chewing away at the roof of the house. The siding, the windows, the chimney. Then, Steve saw a man's silhouette against the blasted window of the house. He was holding a rifle. Steve hoped for a moment that it was one of the army guys, but the fluff of his waist could only have been the A-22. David fired just once, and the sparks flew from the helicopter's tail rotary. It jerked, then spun around, level but moving backwards. Its tail section crashed into the spinning rotary of the other chopper in a shower of sparks. Both helicopters dropped the 100 feet or so to the ground. One of them landed on a neighborhood house. The other landed half and half out of the swimming pool behind it. The house exploded with an enormous gow of yellow flames and black smoke. Then the day was silent again. Holy fucking shit, Steve said. He turned to Irwin, hoping he might confirm this diagnosis, perhaps the weight and with insight of his own. But Irwin was otherwise occupied. His eyes were fixed on Carolyn. She was standing a couple of feet outside the driver's side window, pointing a pistol at Irwin's head. Hi, she said. Oof. Part 4. Hi yourself, Steve managed. From this angle, he saw yellow hair next to her, about waist high. His first thought was that she was standing next to a blonde 3-year-old, but when he stretched his neck up to see better, he met yellow eyes. Hey, is that Naga? He looked as soon as it was out of his He knew as soon as it was out of his mouth that it was a dumb thing to ask. How many lines are there in a typical suburb? It was her. She stood on her own power, strong and alert. Yeah, I tracked the two of you to a vet, Carolyn said. I figured you might want me to patch her up for you. Steve, still cuffed, scrambled out of the car and went around to the driver's side. Wait, I'm confused now. Wait, hold on a second. Yeah, I tracked the two of you to the vet, Carolyn said. I figured you might want me to patch her up for you. Steve, still cuffed, scrambled out of the car and went around to the driver's side. He was heading for Naga, but Carolyn put a hand on his shoulder and nodded at his cuffs. It took Steve a moment to recognize that the thing on her hand was a stone knife. I don't think that'll be sharp enough to... She cut through the plastic of a single swipe. Thanks. Steve knelt down beside Naga, hugging her neck. Her wounds was mostly healed. Her fur hadn't grown back, but where only an hour ago there had been a bloody, gaping hole, he now saw pink skin. She licked her cheeks. I'm guessing you're Carolyn, Irwin said. Good guess, she said. How are you doing, Irwin? You know me? She didn't answer. Steve noticed that her index finger were trembling just a little. You gonna shoot me with that thing? Irwin asked. Don't hurt him, Carolyn, Steve said, still kneeling. This guy's okay. Then, to Naga, who was still licking him, come on, okay, that's enough. I wouldn't dream of it, she said. She opened the back door of the Ford and flopped down onto the back seat. Irwin, sitting in the front seat, gave Steve a little nod. Steve waved it away. He stood by the open back door, looking down at Carolyn. She sat leaning against the rear headrest, eyes closed, the gun laid on the seat beside her. Steve looked at the smoke ruins of Mrs. McGillicuddy's house. Were you caught up in that mess? Carolyn shook her head. No, I got out of there about an hour before the shooting started. I was looking for you at the house. She opened her eyes and gave him a stern look. You were supposed to wait for me there. It's not safe out here. Out here? Steve said, incredulous. Out here's frickin' Disneyland compared to that place. Anyways, I thought the whole point was that you couldn't go into... Irwin was studying her in the rearview mirror. You knew this was going to happen, didn't you? She nodded again. This, or something like this. The president is a prideful man. When I rattled his cage yesterday, he needed to do something to show that he was... He needed to do something to show what a scary fellow he is. They both looked at her. Yeah, Irwin said, all trace of the amiable hick gone from his voice. I say you pretty much nailed that one. I'm curious, though. How did you get the code to get through the switchboard? She fluttered her hand in the air. I'm tricky. She is, Steve agreed. Yeah, Irwin said. I'm starting to get that. What happened to the rest of them? Steve asked. Your, brothers and sisters? Carolyn opened her eyes. I was going to ask you, she said. Did anyone get out? Maybe someone with an animal? No one that I saw, Irwin said. I don't think so. Carolyn's expression was impossible to read. Then there's almost certainly dead. That was the most likely outcome. There's someone on the back porch, Steve said quietly. A woman, blonde hair, kind of short, spiky. You can borrow my scope if you... Carolyn shook her head, closed her eyes again. I'd rather not. If it's all the same to you, it's Jennifer. Then, speaking to herself, at least she went out stoned. She would have wanted it that way. I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am, Irwin said. Thanks, Irwin. That's good of you to say. Now it's just David and Margaret and me. Margaret? Irwin asked. The one who smells bad, Steve said. Ah, Irwin said. How do you know she's not dead too? Carolyn smiled, still holding her eyes closed. David would never let anyone else hurt Margaret. Steve looked through the scope. The house was quiet now. Thin trickles of smoke leaked from the windows as he watched. Mrs. McGillicuddy staggering outside. She was bloody and dazed, but very much alive. Hey, there's the old lady. What's that she's holding? Carolyn took the scope and looked for herself, then handed it back. Muffins. She's got muffins. She shook her head, smiled a little. David must have saved her as well. Just when you think you know a person. What do we do now? Steve asked. Now we wait for a little while. For what? Steve asked. For David to come back. Oh, sorry. This exchange is with Carolyn. What do we do now? Steve asked. Now we wait for a little while. For what? Steve asked. For David to come back. Back? Owen asked. Where'd he go? He's off. He's off to Washington. What for? He's going to kill the president and everyone involved in what just happened. He'll use the broadest possible definition of everyone and involved. Steve boggled at her. That's impossible. Can he do that? David? Yes. They might as well start digging their own grave right now. The president's a dead man. Steve stared at her, aghast. Oh, for gosh sakes. It was his idea to start killing people. Remember? Before his army guys showed up, everyone was just sitting around and eating brownies anyways. I doubt most people were even noticed. They'll have bigger things to worry about. Erwin's eyes narrowed. What's that mean? What time is it? He glanced at the clock on the dashboard. Around 4:15. Any second now. She gave a thin, feral smile. Steve felt the hairs on the back of his neck prickle. Carolyn? What did you do? She didn't answer with a word, just pointed at the sky. It was just about 4 in the afternoon. The sun was still well above the tree line. The sky was clear. There was no eclipse. All of these things were true. But after a few seconds, Steve was forced to accept what his eyes were telling him. The sun was going out. Ooh, what the Part 5. Give me a sec. Water break. Okay. Part 5. For the next minute and a half or so, the sun faded from the blazing yellow that was normal for the time of day to a mellower sunset, orange, then red. Steve, watching this, thought, it's like someone's turning the switch on one of those dimmer bulbs really slow. At first, Erwin hung his head out the driver's side window to watch, but then, evidently forgetting that he was kinda sorta in custody, he fumbled the tourist door open and stood in the parking lot next to Steve. Eclipse? Steve said softly, knowing it wasn't. Erwin shook his head. Nah, can't be. Maybe it's... Is it shrinking too? I can't tell. Well, yeah, maybe? Steve held his thumbnail up for comparison. He could do this without even squinting. The sun had faded to a dirty and unenthusiastic brown as it went finally to black. He saw that it did visibly shrink, at least a little. Then it was gone. Steve felt the afternoon warmth fall away from his skin. The October breeze, the slight chill, suddenly ominous, rustled dry leaves. How cold can it get? He wondered. How cold does it get on Pluto? Oxygen is liquid there, isn't it? He shivered more than the breeze really warranted. Are you seeing this? Erwin asked softly. I think so, Steve said. Are you sure about the time? Ignoring the evidence before his eyes, he was clinging to the notion that maybe this was just normal sunset. Erwin checked his watch. 4:18, give or take. You sure? Steve said. His heart pounded in his chest. The stars were out. They burned down on him like the eyes of a distant monster, huge and merciless. The street lamp flickered on, coating the parking lot in uh, pygmy yellow light. Naga looked at the sky and rumbled uneasy. Right on schedule, Carolyn said from behind him. She sounded pleased with herself. Steve spun around. You did this? That's impossible. It's it's gotta be. He fluttered his hand helpless. Why would you do this? That's sort of a long story. This is real, Erwin asked. Oh, he asked. Wait. This is real? Erwin asked. His voice was flat, unemotional. His eyes flickered back and forth between her face, flickered back and forth between her face and the gun in her hand. It's not a trick? I don't do tricks. She took a step back, out of range. Put it back, Steve said. Turn it on. We'll all turn it back. What? Turn it on. We'll all turn it back on. Oh, I see. Okay. She shook her head. I can't. Jesus Christ, Carolyn. You got to. Everybody will freeze. Not immediately, she said. I talked it over with Peter once. The atmosphere acts like a blanket. The residual heat will fade eventually, but we've got some time. What are we going to do? She considered. Are you hungry? I'm hungry. We got some time to kill. I got a good Mexican place down the road. The guacamole is. I'm not interested in goddamn tacos, Carolyn. Oh, come on. It's really good. Look, I'm sick of this crap. Right now. I want to. Give me some guacamole and I'll tell you anything you want to know. Steve, red face, drew in his breath and yelled something else. Drew in his breath to yell something else, then shut his mouth with an audible click of his teeth. You will? Anything? She nodded. Yep. Okay, Steve said. Yeah. Carolyn turned back to Erwin. We're going to take your car. Erwin raised an eyebrow. He stood about 6'2", Steve judged, and was in fantastic physical shape. He remembered the way the big cops had withered under his glare. Carolyn, pistol in hand, raised her eyebrow. She smiled pleasantly. Keys are in it, Erwin said. Money? Steve said. Did you bring the duffel bag? What? Oh, no, sorry. I gave it to the cabbie driver. Oh, I gave it to the cab driver. To the cab driver? All 327,000? She shrugged. I felt kind of sad for him. They ate some of his fingers. Wait, what? Who ate? He broke off. On second thought, never mind. I don't want to know. Steve rubbed his forehead, then looked at Irwin. Have you got money? Irwin raised both eyebrows this time, but then he shrugged and rummaged through his wallet. He handed over 3 20s, a 5, and a couple of ones. That's all my cash. You want my Amex too? No thanks. Thank you, Irwin, Carolyn said. You've been very helpful. Steve opened the tourist's back door and patted the seat with his hand. Naga hesitated, then jumped in. Carolyn took the passenger seat. When Steve put the Ford in gear, she said, Wait. Her HK was identical to the one she gave Steve. She thumbed the lever to drop the magazine out of it, then jacked the slide back, ejected the round out of the chamber. She clicked the loose round back into the magazine, then turned it to Steve. How do I make the window go down? Steve pointed at the button on the door. When the window was down, she waved at Irwin. She waved Irwin over. Here, she said. She handed him the empty pistol, the butt first, for protection. For there's a lot of crazy people out tonight. Be careful. Ain't much good without bullets, Irwin observed. I'll set the magazine on the sidewalk at the bottom of the hill. Irwin nodded. Thanks. When they were a little ways out of the parking lot, Steve pulled into a turn lane, stopped. Carolyn laid the magazine next to the street light and waved to Irwin. Irwin waved back. What was that all about? He seems nice. She gave him a vague smile. Steve knew that she was lying again. Part 6. To Steve's irritation, Carolyn was right. The guacamole really was excellent. The restaurant she liked turned out to be a Monsieur taco, which in the same strip mall as the vet. Carolyn had insisted that they go there, that particular restaurant, and no other, even though the parking lot was still boiling with cops. She said it wouldn't be a problem. Steve had a bad moment when the big cop that Irwin had humiliated looked their way, but nothing came of it. Steve parked in the back. Carolyn rumbled something to Naga. She rumbled back and curled up in the backseat to go to sleep. The place was weirdly upscale for a strip mall, Mexican, among other things. There were velvet and let me try that again. The place was weirdly upscale for a strip mall, Mexican, among other things. There were valet and doormen. Steve parked himself. Though Naga was sleeping in the back seat, he didn't think that would go over very well. He was also worried that the fact that his butt was visible through a hole and his crusty sweatpants might be a problem. But the closest anyone came to give them trouble was the maîtresse. Oh man, I can't read that word. His right arm was in the cast, and he apparently remembered Carolyn from the earlier visit. When she asked for a table 2, he screamed and bolted for the door. Steve gave Carolyn a what the fuck look. Oh, we came here a couple of weeks ago. David didn't understand about money. What? David doesn't understand about money. When he started to walk out without paying, the guy grabbed him and she trailed off. Wickedness insured. Got it. They ended up seating themselves at the bar. Steve didn't think he could eat, but Carolyn insisted he try the lobster taco. While they were waiting, he drank a half pitcher of margaritas, which cooled them out some. By the time the food was actually in front of him, he had rediscovered his appetite. Carolyn, however, only managed a couple of bites. I hate to admit it, but this is actually fantastic. Steve munched the chips and pushed the guacamole bowl inches or two closer to her. She ate a chip or two, but only pushed her dinner around on the plate. Something wrong? I thought you said you were starving. I am, but my stomach's a little upset. She shrugged. Nerves, maybe. I've got a lot on my mind. Hmm. You said you'd answer questions. Sure, might as well. We've got time to kill, and it might take my mind off other stuff. Ask me whatever you want. The restaurant was starting to fill up. An elderly woman in a mink stole-eyed Carolyn's leg warmers and Steve's bloody concert shirt, then did something haughty with her face. Steve waved at her Queen Elizabeth style wrist only and gave her a big toothy grin. She scurried away. Hmm, where to start? He drummed his fingers on the table. Can you really talk to Naga? Like, I mean, really? I can. Yeah. Animal language are their own specialty, but I get by. My pronunciation isn't as good as Michael's. How did you guys learn that? Father Father figured it out. He took notes. Notes on talking to lions? That, yes, and other animals too. Everything that has a language, really. That must have taken him a while. 100 years or so for the first couple of species, I think. Less once he got the hang of it. Then, then seeing the look on Steve's face, he's very old. Oh, he's very old, you see, and he's stayed busy. Languages are really the last of it. She sighed. Really? The very last of it. Trust me on this. Like, how old are we talking about? No one really knows. Oh, no one's really sure. At least 60,000 years? Probably a lot more. But the question isn't really meaningful. He spent a lot of his life in the library. Time's different there. I see, Steve said slowly. And is that where you're from too? The library? What? Well, yes and no. I was born in Cleveland, I think. Someplace that started with a C. Anyways, he gave a small, sad smile. But yeah, I guess I am from the library. I don't get it. I'm not sure I do either, honestly. I mean, I know what he did to us, but I really don't have any idea why. Who? Father? Your dad? She shook her head. That's that's just what we call him. He wasn't my biological father. I'm not sure that would even be possible. No one really knows what he is. So what? He's like an alien? She shrugged. Maybe, but I don't think so. But I don't think he's human either. Originally, I mean. The world's a lot different now than it was in the third age. There's probably there's probably weren't any people when he was born. Third age. This age, the age of Father's rule, is the fourth. Before Father, creation was ruled by something else. It was darker then. By all accounts, it was a worse time. That's the world Father was born into, the one he conquered. I don't. She fluttered her hand as if waving away a distraction. How Father started doesn't really matter. Then what does? Steve asked, irritated. She made him feel like a child. He was obscurely pleased when she took this question seriously, wrinkling her brow, and she thought about how to answer. He's smart, she said finally. There's the key. I think it all flowed from that. She looked at him. This is just speculation, do you understand? I don't really know. Welcome to my world. She frowned. Sorry, go on, please. I'm interested. She nodded, peered down onto her club soda. Okay, this first part, fairly sure of it. Imagine someone like Isaac Newton, at once in history, genius, maybe human, maybe not so much. All that matters about him is that he's really smart. That and the fact that he was born into a terrible time. Probably worse than you can imagine. Something like hell, except real. It was ruled by a thing called the Emperor. With you so far? Good. Here's where I start guessing. In the library there was 12 catalogs, but the first one, the white catalog, is medicine. I think that might be significant. Maybe Father started out with whatever passed for a doctor in those days. Father stumbled over something what was very useful for repair, a plant, a potion, whatever. Somehow he figured out how to stretch out his life, to buy himself time, and he used that time to learn more, to live longer. Eventually, he was satisfied that he could live as long as time, as live as long as he wanted, heal whatever wounds came up. After that, he used that time to teach himself other things. Like what? Well, the second catalog is war. I think that might not be a coincidence either. Father is crafty. I imagine he was quiet at first, planning, arranging things, gathering his power. How do you guys say? Flying under the radar? Then, eventually, when he was ready, she tapped the bar with one lacquered fingernail. He turned his attention to the author of his mystery. Damn it. He turned his attention to the author of his misery. He understood, I think, the only real escape from hell is to conquer it. He had allies. Nobunaga was a key player, and someone named Mithra Mithragnahai. They're the only ones who knew for sure what happened, and they aren't talking. The three of them killed him, the emperor guy. Well, I doubt Father let him off that easy, but yeah, they usurped him. Okay, then what? I don't know. The records are lost, but one way or another, the Third Age ended. There were other battles after that, betrayals, wars. Enemies rose and fell. The Duke, Q-33 North, others. Eventually, Father grew powerful enough that no one could challenge him. So, where do you come in? Collective you, I mean. You, David, the rest. She took a sip of her soda. 60,000 years later, give or take, 23 years ago, it was last summer. I was maybe 8 or 9 years then. Well, that was when he adopted us. She considered. Or maybe adopted isn't the right word. We were more like his apprentice. Then what? Steve trailed off. The TV behind the bar was turned to CNN. During the dinner, the coverage had centered on the son's mysterious absence. What was up? What, what was up with that? But now, evidently, there was breaking news. Wolf Blitzer, looking dazed, was talking over some grainy camcorder footage taken from the sidewalk in front of the White House. A section of the wrought iron fence around the front lawn was broken away. There was a bare, bloody footprint on the sidewalk next to the body, unconscious or dead, of a teenage boy. The camera looked up. In the background, the east wing of the White House was in an uncontrolled blaze. Talons of fire 30 feet long clawed at the night sky. Wolf Blitzer was saying things like catastrophic loss of life and a constitutional order of secession. Fuck me, Steve said softly. The image was grainy, and whoever was holding the camera wasn't doing a very good job keeping it steady. Even so, Steve could make out a man in the middle distance silhouette against the fire. He carried a long stick with a flashed yellow. When the light caught it bright, and oh wow. The puffy bit of the midsection could only have been a tutu. Steve ordered a tequila. Carolyn followed his gaze, and seeing what was on TV, she nodded. Are you about done? We'll need to head out soon. I guess, Steve said, distracted. Carolyn got up and disappeared into the ladies' room. Now, Wolf Blitzer was doing a live interview with a lawyer type who's seen the attack on the White House. The lawyer, mildly hysterical, kept running his fingers through his thinning hair and repeated, He killed 3 guys. Men, 3 of them. Messed them all up. Even so often, Blitzer would nod, gravely but encouragingly. While they were talking, someone blew up the Capitol building. Shrapnels from the blast. It might have been an office chair, ripped off the hysterical guy's left arm. The overpressure knocked Wolf Blitzer on his ass. A second later, Erwin Burnett cut to a recorded interview with a soccer mom in Maryland who had seen something bigger than an elephant walking down the side of the interstate. The bartender refilled Steve's tequila without asking and poured one for himself. You ready? Carolyn asked. Yeah. I mean, no. Or maybe, I guess. Do we have another minute? He nodded at the tequila. Okay, but hurry. Yes, ma'am. He knocked off half of the tequila at a gulp. Did you have something to do with that? On TV, the woman who had seen the elephant thing held up her hand. Her eyes rolled back in her head. She was screaming. The skins of her arms was pitch black, as if it had been dipped in ink. Something was wrong with her fingers. They quiver, not like fingers at all anymore. They look like, to Steve, like tentacles. Not really. Well, indirectly. It comes from Barry O'Shea, or maybe one of his people. They're very contagious. Who? Contagious? What? She's got it. It's called a reality virus. It's not actually that dangerous. It just looks bad. The tentacles act like antennas, sort of. They make her receptive to the underthoughts. If she lets it go untreated, she could get possessed. Possessed? You mean like demons? What kind of possessed? What? No, Carolyn laughed. For one horrifying moment, Steve thought she might pinch his cheeks. There's no such thing, Steve. What then? Silent ones. They're pure thoughts, but They manifest as they manifest as big lumbering things of silver. They're a relic of the Third Age. They can't be killed, but the sun's wide spectrum radiation was deep enough to make them inert. With it gone, Barry's decide it's time to make his move. Does that make sense? Steve just looked at her. No, no, it really doesn't. Well, don't worry about it. When things settle down, I'll sort that part out. Barry is a lightweight. She nodded at the tentacle woman. Anyways, there's an easy cure for having your fingers turn into a monster hand. Well, easy-ish. The best thing, obviously, is just don't touch him in the first place. Oh, obviously. Don't worry so much, Steve. People will adjust. Adjust to what, exactly? I still don't understand what's all this about. It's about the library, Carolyn said. Right now, the only thing that matters is who takes control of Father's library. Library? Who gives a damn about a library? Carolyn rolls her eyes. Americans? What? You've seen a little of what we can do. Lisa, David, me. What do you think? Steve swallowed. Some of it was, yeah, it was pretty amazing. Carolyn's face was bathed in the red light of the bar lamp, but her eyes were dark. What you've seen is nothing, Steve. Parlor tricks. For all intents and purposes, the power of the library is infinite. Tonight, we're going to settle who inherits control of reality. Well, what do you mean? Just what I said. Carolyn, that's just crazy. I know I know you can do some weird stuff, but she held up her hand. We can argue later, but right now we need to go. Go where exactly? Garrison Oaks, she said. Why would we do that? I just got away from there. It was the exact opposite of fun. And why the hell did you send me in there in the first place? Later. Uh, later. Now I have to meet David. He'll be done with Irwin soon. Irwin? David's with Irwin? She nodded. Irwin was trying trying for an ambush. If we don't hurry, David will kill him. When you say meet David, what exactly do you mean? You're not like conspiring with that guy, are you? She didn't answer. Try as he might, she would not say she would not say nothing else. Ooh, that's end of chapter 10, but we have an interlude. I think we'll save that for next time for chapter 11, because I think chapter 11 was on the shorter end, whereas chapter 10, yeah. Let me just check ahead. Yeah, but chapter 10. Let me just take a sip, take a break, and just absorb what we just read. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So chapter 10. What a chapter. It started off with Steve Steve in his cab and Naga all rushing to a vet in a very heartwarming and comical scene of him trying to convince people to save Naga, right? Getting caught, knowing his fate. I really like that the vet scene where it's the doctor also like, okay, I believe you with the line, and we will save her. Um, but we need to keep up with the charade of being hostage, right? Then comes Irwin, which I love how this twist of fate of him coming back, promising to keep Naga safe, and all the while one day we're taking Steve, planning to take Steve at least back to DC. It was like we're gonna take a quick detour, right, to watch the invasion unfold on Mrs. McGillicuddy's house, where David and them reside, the family. And oh, how awry that whole plan went. David tore at everything, unstoppable, right? Oh, and then the world just turning its lights off. Steve still trying to grapple what's going on as we in the audience are basically now. Well, I guess we were always Steve, but in this moment we are definitely like looking at it from his point of view of what's going on because we didn't know about the invasion plan. We also did not foresee Carolyn coming back with Naga. It's just comforting, right? As we drive away to grab some guacamole and taco break, right? And tequila shots before what will come next, which they leave as a cliffhanger to quote unquote um let's see, what was it? Now I have to meet David, right? To meet David, not to talk, not not to say hang, converse, to meet David. Because even Steve, right, said, when you say meet David, what exactly do you mean? Are you're not like conspiring with that guy, are you? She didn't answer, right? So it's like, oh, what? Right? Because like even Steve was like, why would I go back to Garrison Oaks? And how come you were able to go in there when you said you couldn't, right? So definitely Carolyn is hiding something, right? There is something that she is hiding from us. And then the fact that what David might not be a part of this. So who is guiding him, or like is he doing this all on his own accord? He is. They did mention that he was gonna take revenge on the White House because they invaded him, right? Like they were just having brownies, but now most of the family's gone except for Margaret, David, and Carolyn. Oh, good chapter. But anyways, next time we'll start on interlude 4 called Sore and in Need of Comfort. That's I think that might be trigger warning. And chapter 11, note on the subjugation of the martially superior foe. What? Notes on the subjugation of the martially superior foe. I don't remember why that's called that. But yes, thank you for joining me in chapter 10, and see you next time for interlude 4 and chapter 11. Take care.